Hey y'all, this is part 2 to my What We Want Newbies to Know vlog. And I got some more responses from the Goldfish forum online, and I wanted to talk about that. So, one of the first responses I got was from Breann Thurman. And I'm sorry if I butchered your name. And also Telekeeper. I will link their profiles below. And their main issue was about fish bowls. And I think a lot of people has covered this on YouTube, but it's still a problem, especially here in Kentucky. It's not a really big hobby to have here. Fish keeping is not a big thing. It's more of my 5-year-old wants a pet, and I'm gonna get a fish bowl and a goldfish and say there, and instead of getting a puppy or something that needs more attention. And fish bowls, you just can't do that. I mean, fish bowls are like, I think at my PetSmart they have like a 1-gallon fish bowl and a 3-gallon, I think. And you can't put a goldfish in that and expect it to do well. And a lot of people can, I've seen them do it, and they will get a bunch of rock and layer up the bottom like this thick, and then they will get a nice pretty plastic plant that's way bigger than the bowl and put in, and then they'll put a big aranda in it, and it can barely turn around. And I'm like, why would you do that? I don't understand. That is no life for the fish to have, and you're not going to enjoy watching that, because they're not going to have much of a personality in a bowl that they can barely move in. Fancy goldfish especially like to exercise, and they love swimming around their tank, and especially long tanks, which is ideal for goldfish in general. You want a long tank, and I think my 60-gallon is about 4 feet long, I think, and they are always swimming back and forth. They just love it. And I would never want to put a goldfish in a bowl. Even when I was, 2 years old and my mother got me this fish I was obsessed about, Johnny. He wasn't in a bowl. He was in a tank. Because thankfully my mother was not dumb enough to get a bowl. People say they can't afford a tank. Okay. Well, if you're going to get one goldfish, I can go to Walmart here, and they'll have like a 20-gallon breeder tank on the shelf, which is perfect for one goldfish, maybe two if they're small. You'll probably have to get a bigger tank when they start growing, but and that's usually like, I think they're like $25, which really isn't that much. And then, their substrate, which I will talk about later, rock, sand. Some people don't have substrate. You have to invest in a good filter. I mean, I don't know whoever, thought that fish keeping was cheap, because honestly, it's not. And I could never find all my receipts from stuff that I've bought to even give you an idea of how much this cost me a month. I could never tell you that, because I don't know. Especially setting up this tank back here. I mean, I was at a fortune on that tank. But, I love it, and that's something that I don't understand why parents would would think that it's the cheap route to go besides getting them the puppy they want, because it's not. And if you're going to have an animal, then you should take care of it. It doesn't matter what it is, even if it's a fish or if it's a dog, a cat, a bird, a reptile of something. It doesn't matter. And that's kind of the misunderstanding of fish today, is that people think they can just, get away with throwing them in a bowl and leaving them, and you can't. And they're so much more happy in a tank that's fit for them. They'll grow so much more. They'll have much more of a personality. You'll enjoy seeing them. I always make sure that, my tanks are aesthetically pleasing, because they're all over my house. And anytime people come, to the house, and that's the first thing they want to see, is they want to see my fish. And of course, anybody that knows me here knows that I keep fish, and that's just the thing here. But they always want to see my fish, and they want me to talk about them, and they want me to tell them their names, and they want me to stick my hand in the tank and show them that, they come up to me, and they do tricks and, stuff like that. They think that's awesome. And even though my mother is not super fond of my fish keeping hobby, she does love it when other people come over and, enjoy, the time that I've put in to these fish. And that's what people should enjoy with fish keeping. And they don't, because you have a bowl. And a lot of times, that little 3-gallon fish bowl doesn't have a filter at all, which there's not much room for one, for that matter. They might be lucky to have an air stone, and they might get a water change once a week if they're lucky. You can't do that. And I can't find the words to explain how bad fish bowls are for goldfish, or any fish for that matter. You need a tank. Fish bowls, I'll give you one good use for a fish bowl. If you have one goldfish in a tank, and you are cleaning that tank, it's dirty, it's nasty, you need to clean it, you're going to clean gravel or something, and you're going to do 100% water change, you need to take the fish out. Fine. Put it in the bowl. For what? Probably no longer than an hour. And then put it back. That's a good use for a fish bowl. Do not keep them in it forever. That's not acceptable under any means. It just, I could go on forever about fish bowls. I hate them. I have one, but I use it for that reason. I actually use it for my tetras when I am cleaning them. I had no reason to take them out and put them in a big 30-gallon, tub when I'm just, gonna change gravel or something. That's silly. When I can, and they're like this big, and I can just, let them hang out in the fishbowl until I clean their tank up and put them back in. That's the only reason I have it, and I rarely use it. Usually, with these tanks, I rarely do like 100% water changes. I don't have to. And that's the only reason I think that you would even need one. And I hope that people will start to see that goldfish they have feelings too, and have a good example. Would you want to sit in a closet the rest of your life? No. I will tell you no. You're not going to be able to do anything in that closet. Just a standard closet. You're probably not going to fit that well. That's kind of the way that the fish feel. Don't do it, because it's wrong. And they, like I said, you're going to get so much more out of them if you have them happy and in a tank, and a big enough tank, and they will grow so much more. And more likely, if you put it in a fish bowl, it's going to be stunted and it's never going to get big ever. Um, Off of that, because I could talk about that like all day. Breann also mentioned substrate and food. Substrate is, you can get gravel, or you can get sand. You can have a bare bottom tank. You can have the pebble stuff. I've never had that before, but I've heard people having it and they like it. There's a lot of things that you could use for a substrate. Some people like bare bottom tanks. I'm not one of them. I'm not very fond of that look, just in my opinion. I don't like them. And with gravel, I've always had gravel. I've actually never had sand in my 18 years, but I have always had gravel, and I like gravel. The problem with gravel in particular is that you can't, make it 3 inches thick or whatever. I see a lot of people doing that, and it just makes more work for you, honestly. I know because I've done it before on accident. I bought too much rock once, and I cleaned it and dumped it in the aquarium and figured out that that's way too much. And you really only need enough to cover the bottom. I mean, 1 inch is plenty, and even less than that if you can get away with it. The reason I like gravel and substrate in general is because it's a really good bacterial bed. Your bacteria doesn't live in your water. It lives in your filter. It lives on the surface of the aquarium, on the plants, the glass, in the rock, stuff like that. And a lot of times you'll get more good bacteria with gravel, in my opinion, than you would with something else. And I like the looks of it too. A lot of my aquascapes, my big thing is white rock. I love white rock. I have a long, long time. All my aquariums actually have white rock, except my beta tank. It has black rock, which makes him just show up better, in my opinion, because he's red. But with these, I really like the white rock. It really pops them out, and it's very, I tried to go somewhat natural looking. I don't usually do the big pink plants and purple and all that. I usually just stick with greens and whatnot. For the people that want sand, the only thing that I don't like about sand is you have to stir it up. Sand gets really compact, and if there's pockets that get in the sand, you can get bad bacteria in those pockets. And if you don't stir up the sand, like, I don't know, like once or twice a week, maybe with your hand when you're doing a water change or something, then if the goldfish, comes down and something happens and that pocket is exposed, all that bad bacteria that has been growing there for a while gets out in your water and can potentially harm your fish. And that's one thing I'm just not fond of sand. And I also have never tried it, so I guess I can't say I'm not fond of it. I'm not experienced in sand. I've got gravel down. I can do anything with gravel, but I just not a sand person. Gravel is also easy to siphon, and if you keep up with it, like, I siphon the aquariums weekly about it, just like, a deep gravel clean, just to make sure, there's nothing stuck between the rocks and things, and that keeps it very clean. I've never had any issues. Plus, goldfish are diggers, and they keep it pretty clean themselves when they're scavenging for food. They'll vacuum my rocks for me, so that just works well for me. The other thing that she wanted me to mention was food. Food is a sensitive subject. Every goldfish keeper is different. Some newbies, especially, will feed their fish fish flakes, and that's not a good fish food in my opinion. And I have fed fish flakes before. That is what Johnny was fed before I was old enough to take care of him, because my mother didn't know any better, and it was cheap. Then he got fed pellets and things like that. But a fancy goldfish are known to have stomach issues, and well, they don't really even have stomachs. And anything that's going to disrupt their digestive system is just bad for them. I know now. I did a little experiment a couple weeks ago, and I wish I would have filmed it. I fed some oat flakes, and I know that sounds awful, but I just wanted to see how different, they act. I was very curious, and they usually, my goldfish eat Repashy Soylent Green. It's a gel food that a lot of goldfish keepers really, really love, and my goldies go nuts over it. I mean, they love it, and that's usually what they eat twice a day. And for lunch, they get freeze-dried brine shrimp, and they love that as well. But Soylent Green is really their favorite so far. And I've noticed that since I've been feeding that routine, they've gained a lot of weight, and they're starting to, the babies especially are starting to gain more weight, and Comet's head growth is starting to pick up, which is really, really sweet. But when I fed them fish flakes just to see what they would do, goldfish are going to eat almost anything you give them. And they did eat it pretty fast, but they were very lethargic after. I mean, they weren't really active, and they just kind of laid in the bottom, and they just weren't happy. They weren't their self, and that's when I, figured out that that's not a good idea. And they have a lot of goldies can have a lot of constipation issues, which some people mistake for swim bladder. And when you feed them gel food, I don't have to feed them peas to prevent the constipational issue. And they do very, very well, and it really helps the digestive system just in general work well. And that's one of my favorite foods. Flakes are just not a good nutritional. They're just not of nutritional value, because by the time they get in the water and they start breaking down, you're just kind of losing all of whatever they're made of. I mean, they just kind of dissolve into nothing. Pellets are good too. It depends really on where you're buying them from, like what brand they are. It really depends on that. I've not fed pellets yet. I probably will try that very soon in one of my surprise videos. But I'm a big fan of Repashy gel food. So if you're looking to feed your fish something else and you really want them to start growing out, then I would definitely check them out, because I've had really good luck out of that. And I think that was actually all of the questions that I got. The big one was fish bowls, and if there's one thing that you learn from my channel, I hope it's that goldfish do not belong in fish bowls, because it's not a humane thing to do. And really, if you had a dog or you had a cat, you're going to take care of it. You're going to take very good care of it. That should be no different for fish. Just because they live in water and you can't pet them or stuff like that, doesn't mean that you shouldn't take care of them, because you should. And they really need a tank and clean water. So, this is the end of vlog number 2 in this series. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any other questions or comments, then leave them below, and I will see you next time.